see things in new ways. And we have, among other artists who have had their work on display here. And what I think is something that Wenda is really, she seems to know everybody. She's been a long-time leader in the community, so she has brought so much talent and also creates opportunities for students and first-time artists to have their art on display. It's so meaningful, and we really appreciate it so much. And she has been recognized for her leadership. I just want everybody to know she serves as the Hayward Unified School District Arts Now leader. And in 2018, she was inducted into the Alameda County Women's Hall of Fame, which is certainly a well-deserved distinction. And she just consistently goes above and beyond the call of duty, and we benefit from that. We and all of our community members benefit from that every day. So stay tuned for upcoming exhibits. Next Saturday, we have the first time ever Hayward Lit Hop. And we will be featuring our newly selected Youth Poet Laureate with another project which Wenda oversaw. And so there's much more I could say, but I want to ask Wenda to come up and she'll introduce our guest artist. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you, the library, for our collaboration with ongoing exhibitions here, and we are very proud of our partnership with this program and the next programs in the future. Our speaker today is an award-winning artist. She works in a variety of media. She's a member of the Ohlone Auburn Society and a member of the Hayward Arts Council. She paints and lives in the Bay Area, in the Hayward area, to be more specifically. And we are honored to introduce today Rita Sklar.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm standing over here because I'm so short. And I'm getting shorter. So I first want to tell you that I am not an expert on climate change. I'm an activist on climate change. And I hope that each of you is also an activist, because it's going to take all of us to help the planet. We are in dire straits. And whatever thing that we can do will be very important. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate you being here. And how did I get into painting birds? Well, I was walking around Lake Merritt for exercise, and I noticed that there were all these ducks there. I didn't realize that the ducks come down from the north to warm Lake Merritt in Oakland for the winter. They do that every year. And then I noticed that one duck was different from the other ducks. And they were different from other ducks. They have a whole lot of different ducks there. I never noticed that. So I started bringing my bird book, and that kind of interfered with my walking. I had to stop and look this up and look that up, and I became so fascinated with the different kind of ducks that there exist in the world. Such a treasure, so beautiful. And I incorporated them into my paintings. You paint what you love. And I started painting birds. And does anybody know the story of the canary in the coal mine? Yeah, why was there a canary in the coal mine?
To test if there was poison gas in the tunnels so the miners could be safe. If the canary died, then they stayed out.
Thank you.
He was sacrificed.
And it just shows that birds are indicators of our environment. And many of them are in decline. And I chose these two paintings of mine to talk about. I could talk about all of them. And in fact, afterwards, I'd be happy to hang around and talk about the birds out there if you have questions. So there's the olive-sided flycatcher. Which one is that? That one. I can't see from the back. And you'll notice that the olive-sided flycatcher, he sits at the very top of any kind of tree or branch that he can find because he's snapping at insects. That's what he eats. So that's a very good place for him. And because of the conditions of the forests in the north, he's at risk. And his species has been declining for a number of years. And so his vulnerability status is high. And I just wanted to share that with you. On the other hand, we have the condor, who basically disappeared. There were so few left that they decided to bring the rest in and have them breed in captivity. And they're just now releasing them into the wild. And it's a wonderful success story of what climate activists can do if we pay attention. And there's a story in the paper, 100 years later, condors are back. And I was very happy to know that they've been placed with the Yurok tribe up north in the Humboldt area, where they are revered as part of the tradition of the tribe. And the Yurok people are so excited to have them there. And they consider the bird sacred and central to creation. So this is a very positive note. I'll tell you how we saw this condor. We went with somebody from San Jose who had a antenna. And we were like a little caravan of 4 or 5 cars following him. And he'd stick his antenna out to listen for whatever, because all the condors were marked, and they all had numbers on them. And all of a sudden we were driving around for hours. Finally, the antenna did something, and we stopped, and there he was, right at the side of the road. So easy to see, but we would have missed him without the antenna. So that was very exciting. I wanted to share with you a story. Actually, it was a study in England. Whether a backyard full of birds was more important to our well-being than increased money. And they found, much to my surprise, that it was a backyard full of birds. That the diversity in nature, especially of birds, had the greatest influence on people's moods. Does that ever occur to you? Do you ever feel better when you see birds or trees or nature in general? And the diversity of bird species is the best indicator of the overall health of the environment. This and the sights and sounds of birds themselves contribute to their positive influence. So protection of natural landscapes is a very worthwhile investment in human well-being. We don't often make that connection. But what happens if there's a rainy day? Wouldn't that be nice? Or you can't go outside for some reason and you really want to see birds. Well, did you know about the camcorders? There are cams on birds that you can just go into your computer and look it up. And I have an article on here which I'll put out on the table over there. And I recently went in to look at the ospreys in Richmond. Rosie and Richmond, they were both there, taking turns sitting on their eggs. And it's so exciting to watch.
Yeah.
And you could watch chestnut-back chickadees, peregrine falcons. You know the story of the peregrine falcons on the top of the Berkeley campanile? Well, there was a long-time pair there. I don't know how many years they were there, but they had eggs and raised chicks, I think 6 years together. And Grinnell, the male, was recently hit by a car and died. But somebody else came in. She already had 2 eggs she was sitting on. And somebody else came in and they mated. She laid another egg. And the 2 of them are taking turns sitting on the eggs. Is that sweet?
Yeah.
And you can watch them. It's so cool. Okay, other ways you can enjoy more birding. Do you know about the Ohlone Audubon Society? Well, first of all, the Audubon Society is a national organization, and they have chapters all over the country. And we happen to have a chapter here. In Castro Valley, we actually meet on Zoom right now. And I know Liz is a member. How many other people are members? Mary, okay. And they have free field trips that you can go on. And that way you get to know some of the great birding places here in our area. So this club is Castro Valley, Hayward, Fremont, and all the way out to Livermore. And they have programs the first Tuesday of the month on Zoom where they bring in speakers and field trips. It's just great. So I've got a bunch of these for you, and I'll leave them out over there. So, I invite you to sign up for my art newsletter, which I send out periodically, to tell you about talks like this, shows like this, and I'd love to stay in touch if you're not already on my list. And now I'm going to introduce a very special person with whom I could not have done any of this. It's my husband, Joseph Sklar. And he's going to talk to you about these very special frames that he made and what the story is behind it.
Let me begin by putting out all my little aids, my important tools that allowed me to do this project. I am not a woodworker. If you have any woodworking questions, there's a gentleman over there who can answer all your questions.
Raise your hand, Bob.
Beautiful wood, beautiful woodwork. I sort of backed into this project. My last woodworking class, my only woodworking class was in junior high school woodshop a long, long time ago. But about 20 years ago, it's hard to keep track of the years, we had a redwood fence in our Oakland house that was falling down. It was gray. It was really weathered. The slats were cracking. It was barely standing, and so we called someone in to replace the fence. And as he was giving us the bid and explaining what he would do, I asked the question, well, what do you do with all the wood? And he said, well, we junk it, we take it to the dump. And then he added those fateful words. He said, some people take the wood and make picture frames out of them. I said, wow, what an idea. And so as they were loading all the wood, all that they knocked down from the fence onto their truck, I tried to salvage whatever looked like it was salvageable. And, holes and nails and gray. And then my next question to myself was, what do I do with it? And then I thought, well, I would just sand it. And that turned out not to be a good idea. And so I have one son. I got one son who's a videographer. I have another son who likes working with his hands and with tools and things. And he said, well, and this is a plug for the library system, Oakland has the tool lending library, and you can complement your tools with some of the stuff that they have there. And so I got an electric planer, and I started to plane off all that gray. And I was amazed to see under the gray, after God knows how many years, there was this beautiful redwood. And then I said, okay, I got that, and I did a whole bunch of that. And then the next thing is, well, how do I cut the wood, the slats, into usable parts? And first I sat down and used my higher math to figure out how big, how wide the frame should be and the lengths and all that stuff. And I figured out that I needed strips of wood, I can't remember now, about 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches. And this son, again, has a table saw. And so he cut the strips for me. And that went very well. And then I used my math again and figured out, okay, Rita's paintings for the most part, the ones that are on display are watercolor sheets come in certain defined sizes. And so most of her paintings are on paper that's 15 inches by 22 inches. So I said, great. So, and then I figured out, well, how big of an opening do I need for that? And so I cut the wood, and then the one thing I bought two special tools I got. A miter box. Does everybody know what a miter box is? Miter box saw is if you want to get wood cut at an angle so that the pieces come together. I got one of those. And then the other thing was when you put them together, when you join them together, I don't know how they do it commercially, but I glued them. Okay? And then you have to put the wood in these little corner braces. I'm sure there's a special name for it. But it allowed me to put the wood together, clamp it in, and glue them together. And then I'd wait an hour, and then do the next corner or what have you. Anyhow, it allowed me to make these things without having fancy routers and table saws to be able to cut it out. And all I did, I brought this in so you could look at it carefully. All I did was I glued it together. And then, just to make sure that somebody didn't have a situation where they bought this beautiful painting and had this lovely frame and took it home and that the glue came loose, or I put these extra little brackets on to hold it, make it solid. So that was how I did it. and I felt good about it because, ecologically speaking, you're taking stuff that would have ended up in the dump and you're reusing it and putting it to a good purpose. So as I said at the beginning, if you have any questions, just ask Bob. And if you have any questions for Rita before we walk around, you could ask those now, I guess.
Okay, Linda has a question.
I did have a question. So you saw the condor on the side of the road. Do you take pictures or do you do a quick sketch?
No, I took pictures.
Okay, is that how you also saw the bird on the top of the tree?
Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes if my picture is not good enough and I'm in a group and somebody else has a better camera, I'll ask them if I could use their picture. And I think that happened with this one. Does everybody have a handout?
Yes.
I wondered if we could go through this. I thought maybe each person could take a turn reading to the group. Who would like to start? Mary.
Do you want me to read the introduction, or can I start with number 1?
Start with number 1.
Protect birds from glass collisions. Collisions with glass is a major human threat to birds, killing up to 1 billion birds annually in the U.S. alone. Because birds see differently than we do, glass poses a serious risk, especially when vegetation or other habitat is reflected in windows. From tape to screens and films, there are many effective, easy-to-install, and inexpensive home solutions to help birds by protecting them from window collisions. My sister actually puts sticky notes on the inside of one of her windows to keep birds from running into it.
As an aside, Mary was over my house in the backyard one day, and a bird flew in to my window and died.
Yeah.
That was so sad. Okay, who wants to go next? Rachel.
Say no to pesticides. You can live a bird-friendly life by avoiding the use of toxic pesticides. Neonicotinoids are currently the most widely used type of insecticide and can be found in common products like insect sprays and seed treatments. One seed coated with this pesticide is enough to kill a songbird, and even less can harm a bird's reproduction. ABC has fought to block and restrict these dangerous chemicals in homes and gardens and in agricultural settings by insisting that regulatory decisions be grounded in science.
Thank you. Who would like to do number 3? Okay. Pat.
Be a responsible cat owner. Keeping cats indoors or safely contained outdoors results in a safer and healthier environment for cats, birds, and people. If you are a cat owner, pledge to keep your cat responsibly contained. Simple solutions like outdoor enclosures, harnesses, strollers, and backpacks will keep your cat happy and entertained while reducing bird mortality.
This is very controversial in my neighborhood. Is it controversial in yours?
Well, I think it's very hard to convince a cat to go where you want it to go.
That's true. They've invented something called catios. They're like patios for cats. They're enclosures that go out into your patio that your cat can go in. So the thing is about cats, they don't mean to, but it's their nature to kill birds. That's just what they do. And so if you don't want birds killed, you really have to keep your cat indoors, no matter how hard that may be. Thank you. Okay, number 4. Oh, Joseph wanted to say something.
We used to have a neighbor, and what she did to her cat is she put a bell around the neck. And so the birds got a little bit of a warning, a head start.
Okay, who wants to do number 4?
Well, the other thing I'd like to say, though, is that in our neighborhood, there are a lot of feral cats.
Our neighborhood too.
And a lot of those cats are going to do what they're going to do, and they are really hungry.
Yes, and people think that by making a cat so they can't reproduce, that that's enough. But it isn't, because they still kill birds. Thank you, Pat. Okay, take action for birds, number 4. Okay, Liz.
ABC's Conservation Advocacy Program tackles the toughest threats facing birds and defends critical laws and programs, including the Migratory Bird Treaty Act and the Endangered Species Act. We can't do this without a strong grassroots voice from the bird conservation community. That's us. Take action by asking your elected officials to support bird conservation efforts. Every voice counts.
Thank you. Number 5? Anybody? Okay.
Create native bird habitat. Habitat loss is one of the most widespread threats to birds, affecting both rare and common species. ABC helps restore habitat by working with landowners to institute best management practices, emphasizing full life cycle conservation efforts for migratory birds. You can help birds by creating valuable bird and pollinator-friendly habitat in your yard by landscaping with native plants. Yes, I had a native plant front yard. It was beautiful, drought resistant. People who bought the house ripped it all out. It's boulder and bark now.
So sorry. Okay, number 6. Yes.
I'll read it. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Integrating these simple tenets of sustainability into your daily life is critical to protect seabirds and other marine life from marine trash. Of course, it benefits people as well. Waved albatross and other seabirds mistake plastics and other trash for food and pass it along to their young, often with tragic results. Help seabirds by reducing waste and recycling.
I believe there's a bill in the state to somehow make sure that there's no longer single-purpose plastic. Keep your eye out for that. That's very stop manufacturers from producing these products. Thank you. Okay, who wants to read the next one? Bessie.
Buy bird-friendly coffee. Migratory Birds Program works in partnership to encourage sustainable practices among coffee producers, promoting healthy bird habitat. Do your part today by look for the bird-friendly coffee logo from the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center and explore options.
Thank you. Yes, any comments about that? All right, how about Paige? Yes.
Migrants and endemic species while supporting bird conservation in the process. Many of these reserves are critical to avoiding extinction, like the Arite manatee shown. Be sure to share your photos on social media.
Great. Other organizations like Audubon do ecotourism as well. Okay.
To receive our monthly news, edited release, and other uploads, we pledge to not share your email address with others, and you can opt out of future communication